1 year ago, I got accepted to Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, and INSEAD. I chose Stanford University here in beautiful California and am now in the middle of my 2-year MBA program. And today I want to take the time and reflect on that first year of my MBA. I want to share my experience with you so that you can get a better impression of what it's like to study abroad, study in the United States, study at Stanford, and specifically do an MBA here at this top-tier institution, and whether it's worth it. So sit back and relax, grab a coffee or a tea, and listen to my story. Now, before we get into it, I would really appreciate you take a second, leave a like down below so that we can make sure this video is actually shown to the people who are interested in what studying at Stanford is really like. The program kicks off with all 430 students in the big ZMAX auditorium, which is where all big events take place, hosting speakers such as Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla amongst others, and Gwynne Shotwell, who is Elon's COO at SpaceX, and hosting people such as Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai, the CEOs of Microsoft and Google/Alphabet respectively. Some of the founders hosted in this auditorium are even alumni of Stanford University and the MBA program themselves. I, for example, got to see David Velez, the founder of Nubank, which is a hyper-successful neobank in Brazil. Okay, back to our kickoff, where Dean of Admissions Kirsten Moss tells us this.
We chose you because you are some of the highest potential leaders in the world, but you still have an important job to do, and that's to turn this raw potential that we've seen into capability.
Right off the bat, everyone experiences a severe case of imposter syndrome when they realize that there were more than 7,000 applicants for the 430 spots that you occupy in this class.
And that means that the acceptance rate, given that number, was only 6.2%.
Holy shit.
So wow, I know I heard someone say, that's a low number.
Some of your classmates are Olympic gold medalists. Some have worked at 3 Michelin-starred restaurants, and some have taken companies public at billion-dollar valuations, even before they came to school. Wow, when I heard that stuff, I remember thinking to myself, I might have been the admissions mistake. But Kirsten Moss tells us all they don't make mistakes, so off we go to section kickoff. We're 70 students that will spend the majority of classes in this first quarter together. Week 0 is by far the busiest. Not only do I get to meet a lot of amazing new people, I also get outfitted with some Stanford merch to celebrate that I've made it here, and my calendar is full of interesting group challenges. Stanford teaches in a mix of lectures, case studies, and experimental role-play challenges. The biggest of which is the Executive Challenge, which takes place at the end of the first quarter. 250 alumni from all over the world come to evaluate teams based on their performance in negotiation role plays. While my team didn't win the Executive Challenge, we learned a lot during the preparation phase, during which you will watch recordings of yourself in tough negotiation situations and receive feedback from coaches and from your peers. I, for example, discovered that listening more and smiling more complements my hyper-rational negotiation style. Overall, I learned a lot in my first year at Stanford. I'm super grateful that the university allowed me to customize my own curriculum to chase my own goals. For me, that meant I wanted to immerse myself in technology, and I got to take classes in computer science at the engineering school. I wanted to learn about global business, and I got to take a class called Strategy Beyond Markets that features cases and speakers from countries such as Argentina, India, Brazil, and Zambia. I also got to take a class called Political Communication: How Leaders Become Leaders, which is taught by David Demarest, the former White House communications director for President George H.W. Bush. Overall, there are a lot of practitioners that teach at the GSB, such as Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, and supermodel Tyra Banks, who teaches a class in personal branding. I personally also enjoyed the core and distribution curriculum that Stanford mandates for all MBA students. The cool thing about this is that you're allowed to decide whether you want to take each course at a base, accelerated, or advanced level. That means every student gets to challenge themselves as much as they want. I, for example, took an advanced finance class called Money and Banking, taught by Arvind Krishnamurthy, who is an absolute legend that demands a lot from his students, but also updates his curriculum overnight to include the financial news of the day. And just to give you an example, we literally calculated the current 8% inflation rate 6 months before they even happened. Yes, that might have been a coincidence, but we enjoyed it nevertheless. And I really appreciate when professors put in the extra time to give you up-to-date slides. One thing that surprised me at Stanford was that at the beginning of the MBA program, every class votes on whether they want to vow to never disclose their grades to anyone. That policy is called grade non-disclosure, and yes, our class voted on that too, so I'm not able to share my grades with anyone after I graduate. And the only way to tell whether I did particularly well in my MBA is to look whether I made it to be an RJ Miller Scholar. That's the top 10% of the class. So keep your eyes open for that. But grades and classes are not all. Many classmates choose to prioritize their time here on Stanford campus to build a startup or support a humanitarian cause or work part-time alongside their studies. Here are a few examples. My classmate Piru raised $30 million in funding to build an e-commerce aggregator for Latin America. A group of Ukrainian classmates filled a plane with millions of dollars worth of medical supplies and relief goods to send to Ukraine during the war. And many classmates do fellowships with venture capital firms to help fund the next generation of unicorn startups here on Stanford campus. Next, I want to talk about the people at Stanford. When I arrived on campus, what immediately stood out to me was how incredibly international the school is. My 430 classmates come from 63 countries, and thinking beyond the statistics, which you can look up on Stanford's website, where you'll see that roughly 50% of the class are internationals, I just want to say it immediately changes how your daily life looks like. I now have friends from Peru, from Australia, from South Korea, from Russia, from the United States, and from so many countries all over the world that it definitely changed my life, and I wouldn't want to miss that for the world. One of my goals for the MBA was to immerse myself in a more global thinking environment, and I really did that. I saw President Zelensky address us just 1 month after President Obama had just spoken on campus. I saw Mike Pence, the former Vice President of the United States. The Politics Club had a Zoom call with Hillary Clinton. This week I met the CEO of Coursera for a small group dinner, and we had at least 10 unicorn founders as guest speakers in our classes. And you really run into a prioritization issue you could have never imagined. Do I go to a small group dinner with a legendary founder, or do I get that workout in that I had planned all week? This leads me to the next topic, the living environment. I've always been a fitness enthusiast, and as some of you have pointed out in the comments, I've lost quite some weight since I escaped the pandemic lockdowns in Germany, so it was really important to me to have a healthy living environment at Stanford. And the gym certainly did not disappoint, but what surprised me was how good the food at the dining halls was. I come from a country where cafeteria food is the most bland thing you could have ever imagined, and the dining halls in Stanford, they are fine. I wouldn't eat there every day, but for $6 to $10, an all-you-can-eat buffet with waffle brunches on the weekend and fresh fruit every day is more than I would have asked for, and the performance bar for athlete provides you with enough protein to keep your fitness habits up and alive. I generally found living on campus, which is the case for most Stanford students and most students at top US universities for that matter, to be really nice. The Stanford dorm room is more like a hotel room with a modern bathroom of your own and a kitchen that you share with your suite mate. Okay, as a good business student, the first thing I'm going to talk about is money. How much is the tuition at Stanford University? $76,950. That sounds like a lot, but that's what the website says. So does everyone pay that? Well, the short answer is some people do, many people don't. Because many people receive financial aid that is based on how many assets you have and how much money you earned before you came to the school, with the average scholarship being $42,000 per year. I received roughly that much, and I know many people who even received full scholarships, such as the Knight Hennessy Scholarship, which is a separate program that I'll put down in the description below. I didn't know about it before I came to Stanford, but there are actually lots of scholarships out there, and with a little bit of Googling before you apply, you'll find resources to make the tuition a little more affordable. But tuition is not all, and it's great that some of the scholarships even cover living expenses, because living in Palo Alto is expensive. Just to give you a little bit of an orientation, average rent expenses are between $1,500 and $3,000 per month. Dinner for 2 people at a decent restaurant may run you between $80 and $150. That includes tip. And cappuccino or latte at the Stanford campus cafe called Cooper Cafe runs you between $4 and $6. So one of the first things I did when I moved onto campus was to get a decent espresso machine, and I vouched that for the very first month I would absolutely not buy a single coffee at Cooper Cafe, which I think I adhered to in the first few weeks, but then quickly made a habit of getting a coffee for me and maybe some of my friends before I ran to class, and I think I'm spending roughly $100 a month just on getting coffee. Stanford University estimates the total cost of attendance for an MBA student to be $124,389 per year. And I believe that is on the lower end, considering that part of the MBA experience is going on expensive trips with your classmates. Yes, those trips might not be 100% necessary, but networking is a key element of the MBA program, and some of the trips are more educational or professional in nature, such as meeting with business leaders all over Asia, a trip that is organized almost every year, or going to help a startup in a developing country accelerate their growth. Those kinds of projects are partially organized and funded by Stanford, but partially funded by you. And I think it is sensible to plan for the fact that anything that goes beyond the realms of this campus will incur additional cost. I have to admit though that all of the trips that I have taken thus far were more vacational in nature. I went to Croatia with roughly 30 of my European classmates before the MBA had even started, and got a chance to meet some of the people that I would be spending the next 2 years of my life with. I went to Hawaii to meet most of the rest of my class, which was such a beautiful experience before the stress of academics began, and I think I built my first friendships on those first 2 trips before the MBA. Then during our first Christmas, a smaller group went to Utah together for skiing, which really resulted in new relationships being born that have lasted me thus far and hopefully will last me way longer than the MBA program itself. And in the breaks in between quarters, yes, Stanford is on the quarter system, we went first to Tahiti and then to Panama. 2 beautiful trips to locations that none of us really had on their bucket list, but turned out wonderful. And we promptly had a few case studies on the Panama Canal right after we had just visited it, which made it so much more lively and realistic. And I think for me, one of the goals with the MBA was to get out of Germany, since I had been working straight through the past 4 years that I had been working there. And the MBA certainly accomplished that. I think I just went through a backlog of vacations together with all of my newly found friends, and I'm really glad that I did that, although it certainly was expensive. So now on to the next question. How do people pay for it? Assuming that you're not sponsored by your employer, most people use a combination of their own savings and either private loans or loans by some of Stanford's partner institutions. Now here it is important to consider that for US students there are federal student loans that are available at favorable interest rates. Based on where you come from, there might be more favorable rates in your country of origin, or you might want to have a look at some of the MBA-focused loan providers. Now, I have no experience with those, but I can put some links down in the description below for you to check out, and maybe it is helpful to some of you. So now to the hard question. Is it worth it? My quick answer would be, for many, yes, since the total compensation coming right out of the GSB is on average $270,000 annually. Now that is right out of the GSB. Most likely you're also going to experience a faster career progression in the years to come, making it so that your break-even point on your investment in your personal education arrives after 3 to 8 years. The economics are similar for someone studying the undergraduate degrees at Stanford, where students coming from families earning less than $150,000 annually pay no tuition at all. Now, these economics may change in the future, and they may depend on your personal circumstances. But I believe that in my case, it is worth it, and I'm now working in venture capital in San Francisco for the summer, and I'm super glad that I chose to study here at Stanford in the heart of Silicon Valley and the world's tech ecosystem. I really think it got me closer to my goal of building a technology company in the next few years. And I hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you an impression of what studying at Stanford is really like. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'm happy to answer them. And if you have an idea for a next video that I could make that would help you get into the business school or generally university that you really want to go to, then please also leave that in the comments down below. Lastly, I might ask you again, please leave a like and press the like button, because it helps us share this video with all the people who are interested and keep leveling the playing field. So thank you very much and have a nice day.